February 14th, Valentine's Day. It's a stupid holiday all about being in love, being in a relationship, or being with someone you care about. But that doesn't apply to me because for the past 20 years I've spent on this earth, I have not been in one relationship this entire time. But that's okay because at least I still have video games that I can play. The only problem is there aren't a whole lot of games centered around love besides The Last of Us Left Behind, which I already took a look at last year. So I guess I'll look at my game collection and see what I can come up with. No. Oh, what's this? Tomb Raider? Wait a minute, doesn't this revolve around a hot female protagonist? This'll do. Hey, it's Ethan, and in this very special Valentine's Day episode, we'll be discussing the 2013 reboot, The Tomb Raider, because its main protagonist, Lara Croft, is currently my favorite female protagonist of all time. Not to mention that today is technically her canon birthday. But before I start talking about modern Tomb Raider, I feel like I should give a brief history of what Tomb Raider was like up until this point, and also how this reboot came about. It's 1996, and a team in Derby, England called Core Design released a title by the name of Tomb Raider, which was all about going into old temples and crypts to search for old artifacts while also fighting several animals and gods and other humans as the iconic character of Lara Croft. It was such a success that it ended up becoming a trilogy on the original PlayStation and one of the most recognizable series in all of gaming. Part of the reason why the series was such a success was because of its main protagonist, Lara Croft, and her sex appeal. Yeah, they allegedly made her breasts huge on accident, but come on, seriously, they knew what they were doing. The amount of marketing they used with men swooning over her sexuality was very much a thing. Lara was inspired by the comic book character of Tank Girl, which I never heard of until I was doing research for this episode, and also took heavy inspiration from Indiana Jones. She was originally called Laura Cruz and was going to be a South American woman, but they changed her nationality to British and gave her the name of Lara Croft by finding the name randomly in a phone book. So they got her name from the Yellow Pages. Lara ended up becoming one of the most iconic characters not just in gaming, but in all of fiction as well. Several movies were made in the early 2000s starring Angelina Jolie as Lara, which I don't know why there's a photo of her in my biology textbook, but okay. Other references in movies like in Superbad, which is where this meme originates from, and other references in other games and other media. Core Design made a lot of money off of Tomb Raider, which ended up developing 5 titles, but when it came to the 6th entry in the series, Tomb Raider Angel of Darkness, Core Design was a bit overwhelmed with trying to develop a new entry every single year, so the publisher Eidos Interactive gave the project to an American developer known as Crystal Dynamics, which has been the primary developer of the series ever since. They ended up making several titles themselves, like Tomb Raider Legend, Tomb Raider Anniversary, which is a remake of the original Tomb Raider, and Tomb Raider Underworld in 2008. After Crystal Dynamics finished TR Underworld, Eidos Interactive ended up being purchased in 2009 by Square Enix, and the team at Crystal Dynamics was split up into 2 teams, with one of them focusing on a new original Tomb Raider experience, where the other team ended up working on a side project called Lara Croft Guardian of Light, which was a top-down tactics type game first released in 2010. But also during November 2010, Square Enix filed a new trademark and slogan of Tomb Raider: A Survivor is Born, and later announced in December that a new game was in development for over 2 years. Several months later at E3 2011, the first cinematic trailer was shown off with a release date of Q3 2012. In January 2012, Crystal Dynamics was asked if the upcoming Tomb Raider game was going to be released on the Nintendo Wii U, but they said that they had no plans to develop the game for the Wii U, which was a good idea considering we all know how the Wii U turned out, right? Later in May 2012, it was announced that the game would be delayed to the first quarter of 2013. Also in May 2012, the first gameplay trailer was shown off, and a few weeks later during Microsoft's E3 2012 press conference, another gameplay trailer was shown off. Also in June 2012, they announced who would be playing the main role of Lara, and it ended up being Camille Leddington. And fun fact, she actually ended up studying at a college an hour away from me for 6 months when she was 19. Kind of a funny coincidence considering I'm currently 19. For the rest of 2012, trailers were shown off at several gaming award shows, and the game went gold on February 8, 2013, with the final release on March 5, 2013 for the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and PC, with a definitive edition releasing in January 2014 for the Xbox One and PS4, and also a Mac version releasing in January 2014. And there is also another PC port released in April 2024 for some reason, but I heard it wasn't that good, so who cares. But Ethan, why are you looking at modern Tomb Raider instead of the original Tomb Raider games? Well, for starters, I absolutely despise the original controls and also the obvious. Okay, here we go. I originally did not like this series and this game in particular. Why? Well, because I simply found it boring and Lara to be an annoying character, and plus, out of all the 3 games, this was the one that I found her the least attractive. Now I'll say this, I am straight as hell, and for a long time I had no idea what my type was until I played the 3rd entry in the series, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, where I realized I like this. And have been a changed man ever since when it comes to what I find attractive. So after playing Shadow, I went back to play Rise of the Tomb Raider, and then I ended up finishing Tomb Raider 2013 for the first time in late 2024, and my opinion on TR 2013 has changed, and I'll be basing most of my opinions off of the definitive edition on PS4. So with that out of the way, let's finally discuss Tomb Raider 2013. So this is why men play Tomb Raider. First of all, TR 2013 has no connection to the prior games at all, since it is a complete reboot of the entire franchise, as it starts out with a very much pre-rendered cutscene of a 21-year-old Lara Croft giving a monologue about going on her first expedition on a ship called the Endurance, before all of a sudden the ship starts falling apart and Lara ends up on the beach crying for help, and then all of a sudden gets kidnapped. Lara ends up waking up in a cave and starts making a bunch of noises that I don't think are acceptable to hear in this site, but she is able to escape being wrapped up like a cocoon by nearly lighting herself on fire, and falls to the ground with a piece of rebar in her side, and damn that looked painful, and almost getting attacked by the dude who kidnapped her, but he ends up getting killed by a boulder. Then it has her escape this cave by solving a small puzzle, and Lara is able to reach the surface where the title pops up, and moments later she finds pieces of gear from the boat that belonged to her friend Sam. Lara is able to find some shelter and sets up a campfire while she looks for some footage on a camcorder from the Endurance recorded by her friend Sam, and we learned that Lara is on the hunt to discover the old Japanese sun god of Himiko, and that also an old fictional island called Yamatai, which was rumored to exist in Japan in real life, but nothing ended up actually becoming true. Yeah, if there's one thing that doesn't make sense to me about this game, it's its location. Because when I think of Tomb Raider, I think of jungles of South America, old crypts, and other old places, not Japanese temples and Japanese gods. Anyway, we are shown some other Endurance crew members like Jonah, which is the only other person who is in the other games in the trilogy, and I quite like him as a character. We also have Dr. Whitman, an archaeologist, who is just arguing with Lara about the location of Yamatai, and we also have Reyes, which I don't really know what she does, but we also have the character of Alex, which is kind of a nerd, and Commander Roth, which is a close friend of the Croft family, and is also who trained Lara on how to survive, and some old sailor dude named Grim. After reminiscing a bit, Lara ends up looking for resources and finds a bow with some arrows and also hunts for some food.
This is Conrad Roth, captain of the Endurance. We are shipwrecked on an island inside the Dragon's Triangle.
Roth!
Lara!
You're alive!
Easy, easy. Are you okay? What happened?
I remember the beach. Then it went black and I woke up in a cave. There was this crazy man, Roth, and a dead body.
Oh, God. Where are you now, Lara? Are you safe?
It was so horrible. It's all my fault. This is all my fault.
Lara, listen to me. I sent an SOS from the Endurance before I abandoned her. Hopefully someone caught it. I've spoken to the others. We're regrouping at my location.
Please come and get me.
I have to stay here. You can do this, Lara. Remember when we climbed Snowden? You said the key was knowing that all you've got to do is just keep moving. Remember everything I've taught you, Lara. You're ready for this. And keep your radio on.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Lara's just so emotional and annoying in this game that it honestly really gets on my nerves, but I just really hope she just shuts up and tries to survive. For the next few minutes, Lara ends up exploring the island a bit more until...
Laura, you made it.
Sam, thank goodness.
Surprise. It's okay. He's one of us.
Sorry if I startled you. This place would make anyone a little jumpy. We just spoke to your crew. They're on their way.
Look, he bandaged my foot.
Oh, it was the least I could do. My manners. I'm sorry, I'm Matthias. A teacher by trade. Not really cut out for island life, I'm afraid.
Sweetie, you look exhausted. Sit down.
Yeah.
Sam here was just telling me about the Sun Queen.
Right, Himiko.
Can you tell me more? I'm intrigued.
Well, believe it or not, a couple thousand years ago, Queen Himiko pretty much ran things in Japan.
She loves telling this story.
Himiko was beautiful, enigmatic, but also ruthless and powerful. Legend says she had shamanistic powers.
And this is where she loses me.
Well, there's always some truth to myths.
She commanded an army of samurai warriors, her magnificent storm guard. They rode the very winds of the battle, laying waste to all who opposed them. They say the sun rose at Himiko's command, and she ruled everything its rays touched, from the mountains to the sea and beyond.
But what happened to you?
Sam? Matthias?
Wait, so you're telling me it was a hallucination this whole time? Lara ends up getting caught in a bear trap like it's Resident Evil 4 and is discovered by the rest of the crew besides her friends Sam and Rolf, as Lara talks about that weird guy Matthias and that she passed out, so I guess it wasn't a hallucination after all. But they do agree to split up where the rest of the crew goes to find Sam while Lara and Dr. Whitman agree to go find Rolf, and on the way they find an old entrance and also run into a bunch of Russians?
Come, quickly. Your friends are hurt.
Yes, probably by them.
Get back.
Can't be trusted. You still have a gun.
I don't want any trouble.
No.
We'll come.
No.
But I insist that afterwards you take us to whoever's in charge.
What are you doing?
Be quiet.
No!
I'm handling this.
No!
No! Please!
Get off!
Just go along with them, Lara. Do whatever they say.
Дай меня пистолет. Иди. Пошла.
Lara ends up getting captured by the Russians and finds a hiding spot, but quickly gets discovered and literally goes Mike Tyson on this one Russian guy's ear and ends up killing him.
Oh, God!
Alright, this is the first time Laura's killed somebody, because it's technically her origin story. Well, guess what, Lara? You better get used to it, because you'll be doing it a lot more. Like, hundreds more. Not only if you could see the kind of monster you'll become in the next few years. For the next several minutes, Lara ends up killing several Russian soldiers until she eventually finds Commander Rolf and ends up patching his leg, but that doesn't go as planned as he passes out, so Lara has to climb a mountain and fight off some wolves in order to get some medical supplies to help Rolf, which she is able to complete that and help patch him up some more, and then he says this to Lara.
You can do it, Lara. After all, you're a Croft.
I don't think I'm that kind of Croft.
Sure you are. You just don't know it yet.
Well, let's hope I'm a fast learner then.
Lara is then tasked to make her way to the top of the radio tower to send a distress signal, but on her way there, stops at a campfire and watches some more footage of the crew hanging out on the ship, where Alex and Reyes get into an argument over an electrical problem on the ship and ask Reyes how old her daughter is, and by the sounds of it, it kind of comes off as sounding like a to me. Then the captain of the ship tells some stupid story to Sam, as she also catches Reyes and Roth doing something a bit questionable, and then it cuts to Alex and Sam trying to record Dr. Whitman and Jonah cutting fish, and Sam makes claims that they'll make Whitman look like Gordon Ramsay in editing.
This damned reality TV business. I'm meant to be bringing culture to the people, Sam, not dinner. No offense, Jonah.
The audience demands content, Dr. Whitman. You know that. So until we find the Lost Kingdom, we need footage like this. Come on, let's just take it from the top, okay? We're gonna make you look like Gordon Ramsay in editing.
Oh, so they're gonna make him look like this crazy And then it shows Roth giving Lara some advice about believing more in herself, as it cuts to the present day as Lara ends up killing a bunch of more Russians and finds an old Japanese World War II era base and contacts Alex on what to do, and Bro references Radio Shack, which really goes to show you how relevant this game is now. But Lara does end up climbing this very high radio tower and is able to send a distress signal successfully. But once she reaches the ground to give a location signal, a storm comes out of nowhere, causing a plane to crash and catch on fire, which then sends Lara to an Uncharted-like sequence, and she is able to find Roth again, and Lara is all hell-bent on trying to save one of the other pilots that crashed, which is what she ends up doing. Lara does find the pilot, but she is captured by that Matthias guy and wakes up around lots of bodies with blood, where she makes her way to Himiko's tomb, and she makes this remark.
Tombs.
Well, Lara, if you hate tombs so much, then why the do people call you the Tomb Raider? But Lara is interrupted by Matthias' men and has part of this place come crashing down, as she does escape and is able to receive a message from Sam, and she tells Lara that she's been kidnapped, and minutes later talks about some kind of fire ritual, as Lara then falls down into a river and then into an airplane, and then ends up using a parachute to land to safety, but she is severely injured and has the brilliant idea of burning herself with an arrow to help ease the pain. I don't feel comfortable playing the audio of that cutscene because it sounds a bit 18 plus, if you know what I mean, but more on that later. Anyway, after nearly burning herself alive, Lara is able to contact Roth before getting into a large firefight with a bunch of Matthias' guys, where they make this remark.
She's just one girl! That one girl is kicking our ass!
Yep, that is certainly one girl that is kicking their ass. Lara moves in further and realizes that some of Matthias' men have captured the old sailor named Grim, and Lara ends up finding more of his men and proceeds to get closer to Grim's location. But he ends up getting himself killed, and she is able to contact Roth as he provides sniper support so she can enter the location to rescue Sam, which is about to almost be sacrificed by Matthias' men, and Lara ends up getting captured as a result, but she is able to escape in a pool of blood, and this shot just looks really cool in my opinion. Anyway, Lara ends up going through this cave and eventually finds the others trapped and is able to save them, as she proceeds to rescue Sam and Dr. Whitman, and once she reaches the surface, realizes that this one temple is nearly falling apart, and then all of a sudden runs into Dr. Whitman, but then he ends up running off, and Lara spots Matthias talking to Sam about how she is the chosen one, and at least to me, he sounds like an Osmond Saddler wannabe for Resident Evil 4. Lara is able to grab her weapons and save Sam, but not for long, as she ends up running away, but Lara is able to catch up with her and tells her to find the others, as Roth ends up saving Lara with a helicopter, but then Lara threatens the pilot at gunpoint to rescue the others. But then the helicopter ends up crashing, and Roth has to provide CPR to Lara before he gets hit in the back by an axe from one of Matthias' men, which results in him passing away, and everyone ends up mourning his death as Lara sets out to regroup with the others at the shore. See, there are some fans that believe that Lara is a lesbian because her and Sam were holding hands, and also by the way they act around each other. Guys, it is totally fine for girls to do that. I have seen so many straight girls hold hands and do stuff like that with each other when I was in elementary, middle, and high school, so it's completely normal. So you know what I have to say to you people? Go touch some grass. Lara then proceeds to make her way to the shore, but ends up having quite the adventure by running into several waves of Matthias's men and almost gets herself killed along the way, but she is able to eventually regroup with the others, and out of nowhere, Dr. Whitman shows up and he says that he was being chased, and Lara asks where Alex has run off to, and Reyes says that he went back to the Endurance to try to grab something, but Lara doesn't like the sound of that, so she proceeds to check up on Alex, and I encountered this interesting dialogue along the way.
I wish I could be more like Lara. She blows me away. Not only is she brilliant, but she's also an amazing ass kicker. If she didn't notice me before, she sure as hell won't now. But maybe I can still do something to get her attention.
Hey, I'm pretty sure Alex has a crush on Lara, and hey, I understand why. But damn do I wish I could impress a girl that looks like Lara in real life. Lara eventually ends up on the Endurance and looks around, finding a photo of her and Sam at their college graduation, and she ends up finding Alex stuck in one of the rooms, and then...
Oh, Alex. You got the tools.
Finally, I impressed you.
Let's get you out of here.
Oh, God!
Oh, sorry.
Well, that looks like my dance career is over.
What are you doing? You'll kill us!
I'm not gonna make it out of here, Lara. Take the tools.
Not without you!
How often does a guy like me get to be a hero?
Nowhere to ride!
The others are counting on us. Go! Now!
And here we go again. The female fanbase again tries to tell me that she's a lesbian. Come on, she kissed a dude! A dude! Which, by the way, Alex kind of reminds me of myself a little bit, so I guess dream come true? So maybe there is some hope for me after all. Lara ends up going after what's causing the storms and discovers an old Japanese script in a tomb saying that the soul of Himiko's body is what's causing the storms, as she is all of a sudden ambushed by Matthias's men again, and while she is heading back, finds out that the others have been ambushed too, and that Whitman has kidnapped Sam, and Lara decides to go rescue her again. Lara then goes with Reyes and Jonah to finally stop Matthias, and along the way, Whitman gets killed by some Japanese samurai, which Lara ends up also encountering as she scales to the top of this temple and ends up finding this even larger samurai, and Lara is able to kill Matthias with dual pistols, just like the original Lara, and she ends up killing Himiko and rescuing Sam, and the four of them end up going home, with Lara saying this.
I've been so blind, so naive. For years, I resented my father, doubted him like the rest. But he was right about so much. I just wish I could tell him that now. There are so many mysteries that I once dismissed as mere stories, but the line between our myths and truth is fragile and blurry. I need to find answers. I must understand.
Well, that's the story of the reboot Tomb Raider. A lot of people like this story, even though it isn't my favorite story of the series, but I still quite enjoyed it and it's still quite a fun ride. But before I start talking about the graphics and gameplay, I feel that we should talk a bit more in detail about the characters in this game. First of all, let's talk about Lara. I personally like this interpretation of a younger Lara Croft by how she's finding her way to become the eventual badass that she'll become, but Jesus man, the amount of complaining she makes in this game is kind of unbearable at times, not to mention the amount of moaning she makes in this game makes her sound very... like that, so here's a small sample of what I mean.
This is gonna hurt.
Come on, can you see why I think that? I honestly can't be the only one who thinks that she sounds like that, right? One other thing I also didn't like about Lara is her design. I don't know, something about it just feels off. I mean, I could still tell it's her, but I'm just not really attracted to her in this game in particular. But overall, Camila did a fantastic job as Lara, and I liked how she was more of a survivor than say a treasure hunter or archaeologist. And some of the other members were kind of annoying besides Jonah, so I'm glad at least one of them was brought back for multiple games. And also, like I said before, Matthias just feels like an Osmond Saddler wannabe from Resident Evil 4, but overall I did like this interpretation of Tomb Raider quite a bit. Well, I think we should discuss on what it's like to actually play Tomb Raider 2013. And it's almost like playing Uncharted. Yeah, it's so close to the Uncharted games, it's almost kinda unbelievable, but that doesn't mean there aren't differences. But if you played an Uncharted game, you'll feel right at home playing the Survivor trilogy. It also has so many QuickTime events, or QTEs, that it's almost as much as the original Resident Evil 4 was its QuickTime events. Tomb Raider's combat and climbing reminds me of Uncharted the most. I personally like the climbing more in Tomb Raider compared to Uncharted, but hey, they both feel quite good. But one thing I do prefer in Uncharted is combat. There isn't a whole lot of hand-to-hand combat besides Lara hitting her climbing axes at enemies, since you'll be doing most of the combat with guns. You have the option between a pistol, shotgun, rifle, or a bow and arrow, which can shoot at least 2 types of different arrows, and you can also use these rope arrows to break objects blocking your path, and also as a traversal method to reach higher areas. Lara also has this ability called Survival Instincts, which basically can highlight certain objects and tell you where you're supposed to go. It's kind of a less overpowered version of the detective vision system from the Batman Arkham games. Stealth is a thing in this game, but you won't be doing a whole lot of it since it's more focused on fast-paced gun action. You can also find parts to upgrade weapons and also unlock other weapons by finding blueprints in these salvage areas, and there are 3 different skill trees to grant Lara newer abilities, and you can do all these upgrades at these campsites, which also act as fast travel points throughout the island of Yamatai, because unlike Uncharted, where it's more linear, Tomb Raider 2013 takes more of an open world approach, and it felt really refreshing for the time. While exploring the map, you can complete challenge tombs, which are kind of like side missions, and you can also find collectibles like artifacts, voice recordings, these GPS things, and some other things, but there isn't really a whole lot to do besides that, and also hunting some animals once you've completed the main story. And there's also some alternative costumes that Lara can also wear. But since this was a single player game released in 2013, it of course had a stupid multiplayer mode attached to it, and unfortunately I can't play it because the servers are basically dead now. And honestly, who the says, hey, let's play Tomb Raider 2013 multiplayer in 2025? But for what I've heard, it was a fun mode overall. Well, what do I think about Tomb Raider 2013 from a visual perspective? Well, it's quite a nice looking game still, despite it being about 12 years old and originally developed for the 360 and PS3. It does, however, use the in-house Foundation engine, and overall performance is quite good, but it does have some big problems. I think you all know that the Xbox 360 and PS3 weren't the most optimized consoles ever, so performance isn't super stable no matter what console you play it on, but it does target a stable enough 30 FPS on 360 and PS3. This was played on original hardware for most of these consoles, by the way. But how do the PS4 and Xbox One versions hold up? Well, it's complicated. I think we also all know that the PS4 is more powerful than the Xbox One, and this is one of those situations. Like I said just a few seconds ago, the Xbox 360 and PS3 versions ran at 30 FPS, while the PS4 Definitive Edition targeted 60 FPS, while the Xbox One Definitive Edition was still at 30 FPS. Kind of weird considering these consoles are very similar to each other in terms of performance, but luckily if you play it on a Series X, you do have FPS boost, graphics, which is enabled by default, but kind of weird if you ask me, but the PS4 version isn't a perfect 60 either, because the performance can go all over the place, even in simpler areas, but overall it hits 60 on the PS4 a majority of the time. And yes, the PC version looks and runs great too. There is also a Mac version that surprisingly still works on modern Macs, and as of this episode, it also works on macOS Sequoia. But no matter which version you play, you'll have a good TR experience, and also the music in this game is quite good and does feel a bit like Uncharted music to me personally. Well, that is Tomb Raider 2013, a pretty solid reboot and a pretty great game overall, even though it's not my personal favorite of the series, but I still highly recommend it if you're wanting to get into the series for yourself. So I guess you can say that my opinion has changed on it. But one thing that hasn't changed is that it's still Valentine's Day, and I'm still very much single, and I'm still also very much attracted to Lara. But one thing that I am not is a gooner.